Hello, once again. It is the Brad Show. Once again, no audio, whatever. It's funny. I instinctively want to look at my own face just because, to orient myself. But of course, it probably looks better in the video if I look at the camera. I guess this is like basic interacting with camera skills. Like, movie and TV actors have to learn. Amazing. Um, Again, I thought I didn't have anything to say, but I still have some game sort of idea thoughts I had, so I guess I'll kill 5 minutes with that. What was I? Oh, yeah, I'm still enjoying Sunless Sea, playing Submariner. Currently, my captain's named Stoneheart Lion Pile. The lion piles from in the game. There's a place called Wolfstack Market or something. And I just thought stack of wolves. Well, I'll have a pile of lions. So he's Stoneheart because I'm deliberately playing him as kind of a bastard, which is sort of a choice in the game. And it's funny. I always feel I'm not a bastard myself, so I feel kind of bad when I choose kind of a somewhat evil option. And it's funny how it's easier to do in the game if I'm role playing. So I'm like, I think, well, Stoneheart would do this, and then I actually feel okay about it because I guess it's him doing it, not me, right? Easy justification. But in a game, I don't mind because that's the whole point. That I've even figured out how he's gonna die, and it's funny how in this game again, it's all about death, right? It's about transformation, but death is a big one, and I've already figured out how he's going to end, which is it, and that's part of the game. It's kind of taught me a new way of thinking about the game. Like it's not always about just staying alive and things. Like in Sunless Sea, you deliberately want to die sometimes, or you deliberately want to do certain things. Like very clever that way. Wow, there's 2 minutes gone. So another three. So it's still inspiring me, and I had some more thoughts. I was thinking about like it doesn't again the game doesn't really use its sort of ship stuff to the maximum extent because it's not really about the ship stuff. The ship stuff is just kind of there to provide a framework for the gameness of it where you get to experience the story. But of course I think more about the gameness. That's what I call bones. In a game there's or any structure, there's bones, flesh, and skin. The bones are in a game or a computer thing, the game or anything really still. The bones are like the math and the basic structural elements of it. And if those aren't good, the whole thing kind of falls apart. Just like, you need your bones. You need a solid set of bones. The flesh is, and of course, another word, the meat of the game. And that's very important, of course. Without good meat, even if it has good bones, if the meat is a little thin, well, you can get away with that. But, it's better to have thicker meat. And the skin is also very important because the skin is the interface. You could have great bones, great, solid flesh, but have a crap skin, and you can't really get at your game. So you need good in all three. All three have to be solid, otherwise the game is not going to go, or not at least not be very popular, or not hit its potential. So Sunless Sea has excellent bones, has excellent flesh, and has excellent skin. Though as always, I've discovered a few things here and there that could be improved a little bit, just because I'm playing it so much. Some things are a little tedious to scroll through. It would be better to have kind of a grid where I could just click the choices rather than scrolling through this great big frigging list. But again, that's like a little picky thing that wouldn't show up until you played it a long time. So I don't really blame them for making that mistake. Master of Orion had one of the greatest interfaces. Oh my god, the interface was a masterpiece. Like the game itself was brilliant on all levels, but it's amazing how even the skin, the interface was. It wasn't anything, it wasn't anything super innovative. It was just perfect. It was just incredibly good. Anyway, I could talk about Master of Orion maybe I'll do that next week if I have nothing, or next day if I have nothing to talk about. Almost 5 minutes gone already. Well, again, bonus minute, because still haven't talked about what I want to talk about. What is it? So Sunless. So anyway, they don't really use the ship thing to its full potential, though they do more in Submariner, because a couple ideas I'd already had, like currents, they actually implement like under the sea, And it's very cool. It's just cool to be zooming along and all of a sudden there's this current. And of course, can obviously think in a game, not this one, but the game I'm thinking of, which would be a little more, less specific, a little more just a general kind of ramble around and venture and trade. Mapping things like mapping currents would be very important and interesting because you find a good, and I'd probably have the game make them randomly or something. So you find a cool current that goes roughly between these two ports you like. Boom, there's a 10% increase in your speed. And just like in real life, you know what I mean, shipping goods, the faster you can get there, the less fuel you're spending, less supplies, so more profit. So that's so cool. Like, an advanced captain isn't just some number. It's literally knowing that there's this current and you know how to find it and use it. Things like that. So neat. There's so many cool things that, again, nobody does them. Nobody has a ship game. There's been some ship games and some pirate games, but nothing. They don't really go into great detail. It's. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad. There's been some really good ones. Sid Meier's Pirates is a superb game. I used to play that a lot. I could still play it. It's great. It's a classic all-time game. But I'm thinking about. So anyway, so I spent a good chunk of my time at work today, sweeping and stuff, thinking about like just talk about ships. Again, in Sunless Sea, your ship is kind of important, but that's about the only thing. All the weapons and stuff, you get the best weapon after you get even any kind of money. All the other ones just sit there and don't get used. Same with the engines. You get the best thing, almost immediately, and then when you do quest things, you get a better one, and you never touch anything in the shops again. And I always find that annoying in any game, because they all have this. You build these shops, you build this whole structure in your game, and then the players never, end up using it. So it's like 10 or 20% of your game that sits there and doesn't do a damn thing. That's I guess you could call that fat, So fat in a game is not what you want. I mean, in reality, and biologically fat isn't so bad, but in a game, it's basically, I'll use that as my term for essentially wasted content you've made that either the players don't like and are never going to touch, or the worst fat is stuff like that where I just described in Sunless Sea, where you built all this stuff and due to the structure of your game, no one is ever going to use it. So it's literally a waste of time. It's almost it's frustrating for the players because they're like, can I use this? Like, is it useful? I mean, it's in the game, but eventually they conclude, no, it's all these weapons are inferior. Why would I buy them? So anyway, I hate that. That's just I'm a picky person, and that's annoying. So anyway, so there's lots of cool possibilities already. Like, again, using the basic Sunless Sea model, but or ship model type thing, ship idea, but making it a little more general. And of course, I love the idea that I can have it I'm going to probably have it in a fairly high fantasy world. So you have a huge range of ships. You know what I mean? You can have and multiple power sources. You can have ships with, obviously, would be the wind type ships that use the sails. Again, there would be wind in the game, kind of like an old Ultima 5 had that. Like, that's cool because, again, wind tracks, you get currents, you get things like that. There'd also be ships with engines. So then, of course, I was just thinking, really just get in the basics of it. Sunless Sea, you're technically running on coal. I just call it fuel, but it's coal. But in a game that's more about that, I would have, because it's cool, I would have multiple grades of fuel, which is neat. So in some places, you're stuck in some crappy port, and they might have lots of fuel, but it's like for coal, I mean, I know from reality, there's like 3 grades of coal. And I thought, well, that's very convenient. You got your low-grade brown coal, you got your medium-grade coal, and you got your hard black anthracite coal, which is the best because it burns the longest and the hottest. So obviously, these would be very important factors if you're running a steamship, right? You would want, if you can afford it, you have access to, you have supply, you would want to get the best quality of coal because, again, hold space, right? Like having 20 units of brown anthracite coal, or brown shit coal in your hold, that's, you'd much rather have 20 units of the good coal because it's the brown coal is going to burn fast and just run out. Plus, they're almost again, since better coal fuel burns hotter, you might have an engine that needs or runs better when it you get more steam pressure. And of course, you don't have to get into that in the game, but it's neat that field. I'm in the field of possibility stage. Wow, 10 minutes. That didn't take long to kill time, and I've actually got something to talk about. But I'm almost done, so it won't take too much longer. Anyway, so right there again, lots of interesting possibilities. Different ships, sizes of ships. Wind versus steam power versus probably some magical type things. You could have slave ships. I mean, those existed in reality. I'm not saying you want to run one yourself, but it might be something you'd run into on the sea using just manpower to base. That's an interesting thought because they wouldn't need fuel. They would need more in the game. There's typically fuel and supplies. A slave ship would need an ass ton of supplies, but it wouldn't need fuel. So that would be kind of an advantage. Maybe that in certain areas that don't have coal, maybe there'd be, if there's slavery as well, there might be slave run ships. And that's kind of interesting. Again, repugnant in reality, but interesting in a game sense. So yeah, so again, you can see what I'm talking about. Like just interesting. But this is the bones, right? I'm just talking about the bones of the game. Already interesting. Different types of ships. If you run a sail ship and a steamship, maybe you go in and you're taking out these slave ships and maybe you're freeing the slaves, in which case you either have a bunch of slaves to take back and sell if you're a bastard, or you free them and get more crew and more other stuff. So again, right there, that's interesting. And the other possibilities in a game like that would be trade, obviously. So there's fighting, there's trade, there'd be adventure type stuff. Just very interesting. And of course, I was thinking about stats the other day. You always get I call it the swamp of stats, because if you start thinking about stats like a way to define a character, it's just like there's a million possibilities, and they all kind of, it's hard to break out of the loop of you start thinking about how to break them down, all the ways, different attributes, it's sort of a sticky area for game designers because it's hard to decide and break it down. Anyway, so yeah, that's basically, I live my mundane life and I think about game things. That's pretty much it right now. Anyway, so wow, 12 minutes. So McGraw might be a little more interested in this one because we're talking about game stuff. Not that he'll ever watch this probably because he's a busy man, but that's cool. Yeah, I hope your thing gets going at some point, McGraw. That would be interesting. See what you're doing. All right, so I've done my segment, had my dinner, blah blah blah, and now it's time to play some game. All right, have a good one, everyone. Talk to you later.